What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another professional picks video where we will be going through every game in NFL Week 9. Let's jump into it. But first, I will ask what I always do and like the video. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to the channel to keep getting our NFL content week in and week out. And let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, or who you're taking this week. Starting off with the Thursday night game and hopefully, presumably, the return of the two-time MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson on the road against the Dolphins, who had a shockingly upsetting blowout win against the Falcons on the road this last week. Even still, you see the Ravens as a 7-point favorite on the road. I have no reason to believe that the Ravens are going to lose this game, especially if Lamar Jackson's back, and I could see them even competing without him. This is a Ravens team that, after the bye, even with Snoop Huntley there at quarterback, backing up Lamar Jackson, getting a win against the Bears, this is a 2-5 team in the Ravens that needs to win week in and week out if they want to compete for the playoffs, the division. It's very much a threat right now as the Steelers are 4-3. The Bengals are 3-5. So they're going to be really chasing the Steelers here. But with Joe Burrow back, who knows what this division race can look like. Regardless, the Ravens need to get wins when they can, and this is certainly one that's up their alley. The Dolphins and the Falcons are a lot alike, and you never know what to expect and what team you're going to get out of them. Some weeks they can put up stellar performance like the Dolphins did last week, and sometimes they could do spectacularly poor performances like 2 weeks ago against the Browns. I don't think that you're going to see another prolific offensive output for the Dolphins, and even still, they only put up 24 points against the Falcons there. What I more suspect is the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry running duo being really insanely difficult for this Dolphins team that is a bottom 10 PFF graded run defense, and one of personally, with my own anecdotal evidence and eyes, one of the worst run defenses in football. I think the Ravens with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry stomp them in the ground game and come up with a few timely turnovers against Tua Tagovailoa, who still, I think, leads the league in interceptions this year. So I like the Ravens a lot this game with Lamar Jackson being contingent on playing. I think the Ravens win this game. I think they win big. You see a lot of points here. I think the Ravens are going to be a big contributor to that. I think you see this game being 30-20 Ravens. Interesting game here with the 4-3 Bears, who just snapped their 4-game win streak against the loss against the Ravens, with the Bengals, who just dropped a really tough one against the Jets there at home even. So now they are at home again. They're underdogs against the Bears. I think the big reason is, much like the Falcons and the Dolphins, they have a pretty poor run defense, and even more so like the Dolphins. The offensive line is poor. The defense is poor. They don't have a lot going for them. Kind of the same story that we've spoken about the Bengals for the past few years. The only difference is in the past you've had Joe Burrow playing MVP caliber football to kind of mask that. You can see that no matter what the offense is going to do and how prolific even Joe Flacco can be with the talent around them, if you're letting up 38 points, it's really hard to win football games in the NFL. For the Bears, I'm a little surprised they're favored because I was not impressed against the backup quarterback-led Ravens. And I still haven't seen a ton from this Bears offense that is leading me to believe that Caleb Williams is the next big thing in the NFL, as everyone in Chicago is hoping for. You do see the connection with him and Rome Odunze start to light up more and more each week. Like really kicked off the season hot too. And then you see DeAndre Swift at running back actually being a little bit of a spark plug for this offense, surprisingly so. With Cole Kmet, who was not playing last week in this offense, and then Colston Loveland, you can start to see this tight end tandem move the needle a little bit more, but I haven't seen a ton yet. This game truly is a coin flip in my mind, and I think the difference here is, again, I mentioned the defense, but the big part of the defense is the Bears, who are letting up a ton of chunk yardage plays, home run plays, and just overall average yards per offensive snap for their defense. They are also really good at turning the football over, and I think against a team like the against like the Bengals and Joe Flacco, who again, to his credit, is playing great football, I think you could see them force a turnover or two in this game, and that being the big difference maker here. I think this Bears defense is long awaited going up, or Bears offense is long awaited going up a defense this porous like the Bengals. And you've seen stints of in flashes of this kind of Ben Johnson-esque offense that you saw in Detroit with Caleb Williams and these guys, but it has not been sustained. I'm thinking this is probably the chance for them to do so. I expect a ton of points in this game. I love the over here as both these defenses have not been impressive. I think the thing that keeps this over from hitting is turnovers from either side, which, again, this Bears defense has a knack of committing turnovers and forcing them, but also Caleb Williams in this offense hasn't been the most polished either. So, again, true coin flip game, but I'm going to give the edge to the Bears defense here. It's hard not to against the Bengals. And another big thing before I move on is the offensive line play. The Bears actually did a lot of work this offseason to patch up their offensive line, getting a lot of guys in free agency, especially in the interior. That's resulted in them having a top 10 pass blocking unit in football and in the 11th best run blocking unit. In comparison, the Bengals have the worst run blocking unit in football and the third worst pass blocking unit. So offensive line really going to be a struggle for the Bengals as it has all season and in past seasons. Same with the defense. I think without Joe Burrow against, let's call it an average opponent with the Bears, I like Chicago to go on the road and pick up a win here, relying on the defense to force a turnover or two. Moving on to another NFC North matchup, you got the Lions off a bye week, posting over a touchdown favorite against the Vikings, coming off a long week and a brutal loss against the Chargers there on Thursday Night Football. You're going to see the return of J.J. McCarthy here after Carson Wentz has been put on IR. Frankly, I don't think it matters too much. And what a big problem with this quarterback position for the Vikings is the offensive line play in front of them, particularly in the pass blocking game. A huge thing for the Vikings has been the inconsistency in personnel around that front five, protecting the quarterback, especially without All-Pro Christian Darrisaw or Pro Bowler Christian Darrisaw at left tackle there. Really hurts them, but you got guys constantly shuffling in and out of that offensive line, making that consistency a huge factor in the protection of that quarterback. You're coming up looking at a Lions team that is really, in my opinion, firing on all cylinders. You had a tough loss against the Chiefs, but other than that, I think this is still a complete team, just like it was last year. When you can get a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs going in that offense, it just works wonders. And then you look at that game against the Buccaneers, where the defense was actually the shining star, even with a lot of backups, forcing turnovers and really shutting down and limiting the Buccaneers offense that has been one of the better offensive outputting teams in the league this season. Coming off a bye and getting some guys back from injury will prove really helpful for this defense and the secondary, and they're going to need to be healthy going up against this elite receiving core and unit with guys like Justin Jefferson, who everyone's familiar with being the top 1 or 2 receiver in this game. Jordan Addison, one of the better number 2 receivers in this game, and even Naylor being a solid third option, throwing T.J. Hockenson at the receiving tight end, and his Lions coverage unit's going to have his hands full. But I think you could say the same thing about facing the Bucs. This Lions defense was up for the task, even with backups. Now with healthier guys, I think, again, they limit this Vikings offense that has struggled in the run game. Again, partially because offensive line, Aaron Jones' injury, and Jordan Mason's ineffectiveness haven't helped there. And then when you find yourself consistently in third and long with the offensive line that the Vikings have, you've seen the output so far and the production at quarterback, no matter who's been under center. So, like the Lions here, I think they're really complete, especially as you see this defense round out and get healthier. I can't imagine, honestly, it's a close game after the bye, and I like the Lions to blow out the Vikings big time here. I could even see them getting close to 40 points, but I'll be conservative and give Lions 35, Vikings 17. And the final matchup for the NFC North here, the Packers, 12.5-point favorites against the Panthers, who looked really poor at home when they hosted Buffalo coming off their bye week. Green Bay fared off Aaron Rodgers' revenge game in Pittsburgh on Sunday night, and this team continues to turn heads as they put together a spectacular second half to make that game not even close there again on Sunday night. I think the big thing that really opened my eyes in this Panthers game was that running defense and how they let the Buffalo Bills and James Cook run all over them. I had mentioning, and I still will praise the Panthers for improving the defense as of last year. Hard not to get better, as they were one of the worst and the most embarrassing, let's call it, defenses in the league. But even now, showing up just outside of the bottom 10 is a big improvement for them. But it also proved to you in that game against Buffalo that they still got a ways to go. The Packers, who have shaken up offensive line, but getting guys back like Zach Tom at right tackle will really help. Don't even need a top or even above average unit to let Josh Jacobs be cooking like he has been all year. You throw in probably the deepest receiving core in football, especially when you throw in Tucker Kraft at tight end that is really coming into a role in his own. This Packers offense looks really scary and proves and has shown that it can be at times the best in the NFC and even in the best in football in some cases. The Panthers here, I think they're just a little bit overwhelmed. This matchup in the 12.5 points is more than warranted here. If they put out another defensive showing like they did in this week against the Bills, then it's going to get ugly pretty quickly. I think this Packers defense too is really solid. Right now it's a top 3 unit in football. You got the scariest pass rusher outside of Myles Garrett there and Micah Parsons for the Packers. I just think the deck is really stacked against the Panthers here. I'd like the Packers to control this game and keep the Panthers here another really low scoring total. I think you see the Packers put up 28, Panthers 16. Here's one of our closest games of the week, if not the closest. Broncos coming off a big win on the road against the Texans after a surprisingly big win against the 49ers there. I think this game, on the surface is a coin flip, but to me, I think the Broncos are a step above and a tier above the Texans here. If you look at the Broncos record, they're 6-2. The 2 games they lost, they were both, I believe, losing by field goals as time expires. One was for sure against the Colts, who are 7-1, and I think the other one was against the Chargers. I'm going to check on that before Yeah, they lost by 3 against the Chargers as time expired. My point being, this Broncos team could very feasibly be 8-0. This is a really solid team with a really solid defense. What's helped their offense so much is the best pass blocking offensive line in football, and that's going to be needed against one of the best defenses and best defensive lines in football in Houston. You got the combination of Danielle Hunter and Anderson on Will Anderson on the defensive line there that has been giving quarterbacks fits. And look no further than the game against the 49ers. You saw Mac Jones have no time there for the San Francisco offense, and the Broncos are going to need every bit of this pass blocking unit to slow down this Texans pass rush. And I think that's a big nullifier of this game, and that's what the Texans have been able to hang their hat on. Surprisingly, not a ton of other shining spots on this team. If you take the whole season under a microscope, I know last week you saw the passing game start to become revitalized, but in general, this offensive line has played pretty poorly. That's resulted in a poor run game and poor pass blocking to give C.J. Stroud time to get these receivers open in space. So I think the biggest relative advantage, and just the biggest advantage the Texans have over basically every team, is their pass rush. When you go up against this great run blocking team with the Broncos, I think that gives the Broncos a huge edge. I love the way that their passing unit has been looking. Obviously, Courtland Sutton, their number 1 receiver, but you get other guys like Pat Bryant and Franklin in there in the mix, and now you actually start to have a little bit more semblance of a true wide receiving core. R.J. Harvey had a breakout game last week. I don't expect the same thing against the Texans front 7 that's so stout, but again, I think that this Broncos defense is also so solid that you're going to stymie the Texans offense that has been pretty inept at times. Until a few weeks ago, they were averaging less than 15 points a game. Right now, they're averaging, give me one sec here, just over 21 points a game. I don't think they're going to be able to put up those kind of numbers against this Broncos defense. While, again, this Texans defense is no slouch of their own, I think this pass blocking unit and offensive line for the Broncos is a huge difference maker in this game, and that's why I really like the Broncos here on the road, who've been playing some really good football. The final score here, I'm going to go 21-17 Broncos here. This line here opened up at 4.5, but after the Falcons really laid an egg there against the Dolphins, you see the Patriots, who are rolling right now with Drake May, as 5.5-point favorites here. This game kind of makes me nervous a little bit because you truly don't know what you're going to get out of the Falcons. And it kind of scared me that it was opening only at 4.5 because I think in everyone's mind the Patriots are clearly a much better team than the Falcons. I don't dispute that. And the Patriots at 6-2 in first place in the AFC East look really unstoppable here right now with Drake May, who just making every play in the book. Some of the best throws I've seen all season have come from this guy. He's also a huge dual threat quarterback with some real quickness and explosivity in the run game from him. Usually not in design runs as you see with the Florida quarterbacks, but really just ad hoc scrambling that is resulting in a lot of chunk plays and a big reason the Patriots offense stays on the field week in and week out. For the Falcons, I think this game really is going to hinge on Michael Penix Jr. playing. When you saw Kirk Cousins there last week, he really was not effective at all, and you can see this offense just didn't click the right way, and that's what happens when you don't get the reps of the starters as you normally would. But Michael Penix, day to day right now, he should be playing this game. It's scary when you get him going with Drake London, who is another big part of the equation to be playing. But if you can get London and Bijan Robinson going, then this is a scary Falcons team that is able to beat the likes of the 49ers and some other decent wins that they have under their belt. Ultimately, I'm going to stick with the Patriots to win the game, and I think my idea of the spread is really going to hinge on the status of Drake London and Michael Penix, who again should be playing. Drake London also day-to-day, I'd be surprised if he didn't play, but that's going to be a big factor here. Just with Drake May playing potentially the best quarterback in the NFL right now, flat out probably could make that case that he is playing the best quarterback football right now in the NFL. Hard to pick anyone against the Patriots right now, especially when they're at home against an inferior opponent. I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons made this a game just because they have two really big playmakers in Robinson and London here. Penix really showing some chemistry with them. I'm going to go against the grain here and take the Falcons to cover this one and still lose on the road. I'm going to go Patriots 24, Falcons 20. Real big loss to football fans everywhere when Cam Scatterbo went out with that really gruesome ankle injury against the Eagles. They host the 49ers in a battle of old school football teams of the 80s and 90s with some great defenses, as the Niners are 2.5-point favorites here. I think big thing right off the bat for the Niners, who've been riddled with injuries all season long. They're going to be getting Brock Purdy back. They should be getting Ricky Pearsall back. Not sure about Brandon Ayuk, who's been out all season long. But just the two that I mentioned being back is a huge boost for the 49ers here. Brandon Ayuk not going to be playing this game. But with Cam Scatterbo being out for this Giants team, being a real hindrance to that offense, because he was a big spark plug and producer there, I think it's going to be hard for this Giants team to put up points, even against this defense like the 49ers, that has, again, on both sides of the football, been riddled with injuries. Now that you're starting to get the 49ers more and more back to health with each week, you get George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, who've proven really solid these last 2 weeks. In addition to Ricky Pearsall, you're starting to get an idea of what this Kyle Shanahan offense is capable of as these guys get back. This Giants defense, you saw a few times in that Eagles game, really poor tackling unit outside of Bobby Okereke, middle linebacker. Not particularly great at stopping the run. Again, one of the bread and butters is 49ers offense behind this all-pro running back in Christian McCaffrey. Giants run defense, third worst in the league here. I think, again, with CMC running behind that offensive line and George Kittle, along with getting some guys healthy, especially their starting quarterback back, I think the 49ers bounce back here against that loss against the Texans and roll against the Cam Scatterbo-less Giants, whose offense is going down one by one after Malik Neighbors is well being out for the season. You really feel for this Giants team, but they're just not at the same caliber, even against the hampered 49ers team. I like this to be a low-scoring game, though. I think you're going to see probably a lot of punts. unfortunately. But I like the Niners to win this game 21-17. This one was a little bit intriguing to me as you get the Colts playing, the best football in the NFL right now is a complete team, 7-1, only loss coming against the Rams on the road in the game that you could argue they should have won, if not for many mistakes made by Daniel Jones and that Colts offense. They're looking to go against a Steelers team that did not impress at all and really laid an egg in that second half of the game against the Packers there Sunday night. Again, this Colts team, who's been playing incredible football, they're averaging just short of 34 points a game. The total reflects a high-scoring affair. You really scratched my head to wonder how the Steelers are expected to cover this game. This, to me, doesn't make any sense in the world. It seems like a complete trap game. And, again, makes no sense how anyone can conceivably look at this and say, well, I think the Aaron Rodgers Steelers team is going to hang with the Colts right now. It just doesn't make sense. I'm sure the bets have been piling in on the Colts, but even still, the line hasn't moved from Indianapolis -3. Completely mind-boggling and completely scary. Alarms going off my head as we speak. Trying to convince myself to have the guts to bet on the Steelers here because this seems like the biggest trap game of the year this far. Maybe second only to the game last week where I think everyone was probably on the 49ers against the Texans. I don't know what to say to convince anybody that the Steelers bet makes sense or why they will even compete because everything that I've seen from this Colts team makes them look just about unstoppable against even good teams, let alone the Steelers that haven't looked great as of late. Best offensive line, front to back in the NFL here for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor looking to set the NFL record for touchdowns in a season. These guys are putting up points left and right with Pittman, Pierce, looking incredible. Tyler Warren at tight end at rookie. Can't stop talking about him. Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell. This Colts offense is so legit under Daniel Jones. I just don't understand how the Steelers are supposed to compete, but yet I find myself finding ways to defend them, and it just can't make any sense. I'm telling you, though, when there's smoke, there's fire. Something weird is here. The Steelers are going to cover this game, or at least make this really close. I'm going to take the Steelers +3 here. That's what happens when I see a line that doesn't make complete sense like this. Don't know how they're supposed to cover in a high-scoring affair like this, but there must be something going on with this Colts defense that we don't know about. Not a below-average defensive unit, but it doesn't really matter when you're putting up 34 points. The way the Steelers have to cover this game, again, I'm going to take the Steelers +3. It's got to be a score 30-28 or something to that affair. I guess the Steelers defense is expected to show up here with a solid pass rush. It's got to be, if the Steelers are going to cover, which again is my pick, it's got to be lower than 50 points. They're not going to win in the shootout against this Colts team. So maybe something like 26-24, Colts win, Steelers cover. Again, keep an eye on this one. Really weird stuff happening. And a game that won't be close and probably won't be any weird is the Chargers here on the road after a long week and a beatdown against the Vikings, taking on the Titans, who continue to struggle week in and week out. I think that was as expected against the Colts there. As the Titans were still only able to put up 14 points in offense, one of the worst offenses in the league this year, and I think the lowest scoring offense in terms of points per game. Still, I can't imagine they relinquish that title anytime soon. Chargers look to really get things going again against the Vikings. I think even with the disappearance of Quentin Johnston, you get another big receiving threat on the tight end Gadsden that's really carrying the load there. McConkey kind of coming out of his shell after, in his sophomore year after a great rookie season in second half last year. Keenan Allen being the sure-handed target you go to on third downs. And then even without Hampton, you see the running game for this Chargers offense start to become revitalized. I think less so because the talent in the running backfield, but more so you get the emergence and healthiness of left tackle Joe Alt and other guys on that offensive line. Justin Herbert playing some of the best football in his career right now, and the Chargers look pretty stout. And I would imagine against this defense for the Titans that is a bottom 10 coverage unit, a bottom 10 overall defense. I would have to imagine the run defense follows. Just outside of the bottom 10 run defense. The theme is poor defense for the Titans against a pretty solid offense for the Chargers. I think the Chargers continue to put up points and flex that offense that they've been showing off the last few weeks. Again, as Gadsden has kind of emerged, so has this offense come out of its shell. And then with the worst offense in the league with the Titans, I can't imagine they're able to break that 20-point shell. Like the Chargers here with a pretty solid defense too, even without Derwin James, who they hate to see go down, but potentially could be healthy coming off the long week. Again, against he's dealing with this ankle injury, but not expected to be, too big of a major injury that game. This could probably be a game time decision. Even without him, this Chargers defense is pretty solid with what they're doing in all phases. And again, like the Chargers to win here, they don't have to put up money points to cover this one because the Chargers are really scoring points at about 13 to 14 points a clip. So I want to give the Titans to stick at their average at 13 points, and then the Chargers 24 to cover and win this game on the road. Another heavy favorite from team out of LA with the Rams. Big favorites here against the Saints, and easy to see why with the way the Saints are playing football. And even against a depleted Buccaneers team, I thought the Saints were going to be able to put up a better fight to no avail, only mustering up 3 points against that Buccaneers team, who certainly came to play after that tough loss against the Lions. Again, their challenge ahead of them against the Rams here that look to be playing great football all around, even with or without Puka Nacua, potentially, probably a top 3 receiver in the league at this point, I would argue. Rams coming off a bye here and getting guys healthy, and just really getting guys a rest. Hard for me to see the Saints winning this game. I don't think anyone's really on that bandwagon. Hard for me to see the Saints even covering this game, as again, this offense has been so inept for them under Spencer Rattler. Really not getting anything going. Even with guys like Olave and Shaheed and Kamara, who's getting a little bit older, not putting much together. Just hard to make the case for the Saints at this point, who have nothing going for them. And the Rams, who look like to be a true Super Bowl contender this year, and who actually boast PFF's highest grade overall as a team ranking, just doing it all in all phases of the game. I think they can get another one here. The Rams, don't forget, they're still very much playing for a lot, as they're tied atop the very hotly contested NFC West, as the Seahawks are also 5-2. That Niners loss was critical because now they are 5-3. This is a tight division where the Rams are going to keep the pedal on the metal here. I think blow out the Saints. Saints probably put up, realistically, let's give them 14 points to be generous. And then that means if I'm taking the Rams to cover, they got to put up at least 27. For some reason, I feel like that you're going to get this 27-14 game with the Saints winning this cover by the hook. In this game here, I think the Jags are getting disrespected, only 3-point favorite against the Raiders here. I think it's really underestimated how poor this Raiders team is. And if you watch enough film by them, you've probably been disgusted with some of the games they've put up in this season. I think the Jags have a really solid defense. Another team with the penchant of enforcing turnovers. Raiders team that has a huge turnover issue on their side of the football. It's going to be interesting, though, because I would imagine they get Brock Bowers back coming off their bye. I'm getting a little bit healthier. Even so, I don't see them winning this game or even covering, because I do like the Jaguars. I think they're a very, I can't decide if they're a bad good team or a good bad team. I'm going to give them the title of best bad team, because I really don't think they're legitimate contenders. But they hung with the Seahawks a little bit. I think they lost that game by 8. I think as you get Travis Hunter and really Brian Thomas Jr. more involved in this offense, you really going to see them start to flourish. I think this is a perfect opportunity to do so against a really poor Raiders secondary. Even with Brock Bowers back, not going to be enough for the Raiders in this offense that has given the game away far too often. I like the Jaguars here. I think they'll win in a little bit higher scoring affair than you think. I do believe that Brock Bowers coming back to this Raiders offense gives them a real boost and a real wrinkle that this offense lacks without them. But again, I like the Chargers offense against a really weak Raiders secondary to win this game with the talent they have in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. with this Liam Cohen offense really leaning on a guy like Travis Hunter in the slot. Like the Jaguars to win this game 27-24. Really fun, saga between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes continues this week as you get the Chiefs favored by 1.5 here, playing in Buffalo, one of the toughest places to play, rivaling maybe only Overhead in Kansas City. High scoring affair with 15.5 total points here. I think this is the type of game you throw out the record books anyways, and really the talents with most of these teams, because it's going to be the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes show, as it so often is. I think, given the fact, I'm not going to go too deep in this game because I think we've seen enough of these two teams. But what's the script being flipped in this game is the Buffalo really leaning on the run game, the offensive line, and James Cook to get things going. You haven't seen a ton of MVP-esque performances from Josh Allen because he hasn't had to. It's been the James Cook show there in Buffalo. I would imagine here what you're going to see is the Chiefs defense taking away James Cook and really committing to stopping the run, which is really tough when you have to then let Josh Allen throw the ball into one-on-one coverage a lot because he's going to carve you up. He is the MVP, and he's going to beat you with his legs too. I would say that's the trade-off I'm willing to take as of right now because we haven't seen a ton from not really Josh Allen, but the receiving core of this Bills team. You see Keon Coleman disappear in and out. Same thing with Shakir. You don't really have a wide receiver stepping up. Either Kincaid, Knox, like this Buffalo tight end group. Not a ton happening outside of James Cook and Josh Allen. If you take away James Cook and force it all upon Josh Allen, I think that's the bet the Chiefs will be willing to take to see if they win this game. This Chiefs offense seems to be rolling here. I'm not been too impressed with the Buffalo defense. And I thought I was going to come into this video and say that I like the Bills here at home in kind of a rivalry game. But this Bills defense has not impressed me all that much. Sure, they played well against the Panthers, but this is a bottom 5 graded defense according to PFF, and you look at some of their games, and really the eyeball test has shown that this Bills defense outside of their pass rush has been really, really tough this year, really poor. One really poor coverage unit that's really ailing them, which will not be good against a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. While the Chiefs don't have the run game, I think they're more than capable and more than happy to let Patrick Mahomes lead them and lead them with his legs too. I think he's the leading rusher for this Chiefs team so far. I think the really heavy balance, or really lack thereof, the really heavy reliance of the run game for the Bills is going to be their downfall, as I think they're a little bit one-dimensional right now in offense. If you could see a Josh Allen signature game here where he really gets things going, but I'm going to rely on the Chiefs, who seem to be a little bit more balanced all around, to take this game and the win. And another classic between these two teams, I think it's going to be Chiefs. I really hope something like 28-27 Chiefs. On a short week, the Commanders host the Seahawks, who are coming off a bye. I think just blanketed statement here, a big thing to look out for will be if Jaden Daniels returns at quarterback, dealing with a hamstring injury. I think with or without Jaden Daniels, I think this line is assuming that he's going to play. Even with Jaden Daniels, I like the Seahawks to win this game. I've really loved the way they looked all year, really leaning on that defense no matter who's been in their personnel-wise. The Seattle defense has been really stout. I think all around I've been impressed. The run defense, the pass rush, I think it's really that the front seven is what's been making headlines in terms of the stats, but then when you look at the secondary and all the plays they're able to make, how physical they've been, and their ability to force turnovers, that's a huge edge for this Seahawks team too in this defense. I think Sam Darnold has looked absolutely incredible this year too. He hasn't had a ton of help from his offensive line that is just below, actually bottom 10 in the league in terms of pass blocking, but when he's given time and space, Sam Darnold has looked downright lethal, putting fantastic throws in the breadbasket of, more likely than not, Jackson Smith and Jigba and other players in and around that offense. But that connection between Darnold and JSN has been killer for opponents against the Seattle team. I think with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, again, off the bye week, getting a little bit healthier and fresher, you see injuries between those two often year in and year out. And getting key guys like Devin Witherspoon back at cornerback for this defense makes me love the Seattle game so much. I'm probably a little too bullish on the Seahawks, but I've loved the way they look this season. I think they've beaten good opponents when they've come to town or been on the road, and I do know that the Seattle team plays incredibly well on the road with their record. I'm going to take them to win this game and shut down this Commanders offense, who is really lacking the run game right now. They're really lacking, I'd say, a pass game a little bit too outside of Terry McLaurin, who has been inconsistent game in and game out. Part of that's due to the quarterback situation. But I have not been impressed with the Commanders really in any phase of the football game this year, and that's just not going to cut it against a really above-average team, the Seahawks. That is also, as I mentioned for the Rams, playing in a really contested division where every game counts. I think the Seahawks beat the inferior opponent here, and they win this one 26-20. Cowboys here after a tough loss, which, let up 44 points. The NFL tough to win games against the Broncos, facing the Cardinals, who are coming off the bye of their own. A lot of bye weeks last week in Week 8. Big thing for the Cardinals is injuries, and Kyler Murray, who has been out the last few weeks. I'm going to venture to say he'll be able to play this week. If not, that's going to bode trouble for the Cardinals even more so, because not that who's their backup quarterback? Jacoby Brissett is not a poor backup quarterback by any means. It's just that he's not bringing this offense to the heights that it needs to be, given their inconsistencies. You get Marvin Harrison Jr. coming back from a concussion, which will help. Trey McBride starting to really pop off. I think a lot of that is because of Jacoby Brissett, who is a big tight end kind of quarterback. But I'm focusing a lot on the Cardinals. What I really think is going to happen here, it's going to be a shootout type of game, as the over-under 52 implies. I really think that even with Kyler Murray, who's expected to play against the Cowboys, you're going to see big offensive output for the Cowboys here, going up against the Cardinals defense that is bottom 10 in the league. And I think, again, with the inconsistencies from their offense, they give enough open windows for the Cowboys to blow this game open. I think a lot of Devontae Williams, a lot of CeeDee Lamb here, and again, a high-scoring affair. But I think I'm going to have to give the edge to the Cowboys, because I'm actually been more impressed with Dak Prescott this year in the Cowboys offense versus the Cardinals. I think it's going to be a true shootout kind of game, and the one that the Cowboys come out victorious. I think the winner of this game is going to have to put up over 30 points with the way both these teams have been playing. I think you get the Cowboys to eclipse that 30-point mark to win this game 31-27 on Monday Night Football, no less. Well, that's it for the video. That is the NFL Week 9. I hope to see you guys again all in Week 10. Until then, be sure to like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again next week.